Okay, hello my algebras. I just want to make you this 7-3 video reminding you how to factor using Xbox. And we use Xbox when the A value is 1. So what do we mean by that? Well, I'm actually going to skip this. We talked about this in class. But in chapter 6, we multiplied monomials and binomials and trinomials. In this binomial times a binomial, it's going to be x squared plus 7x plus 10, which is, I can prove it to you using my box method. And when I multiply it, I get x squared plus 7x plus 10, right? But now we're going backwards. How do I get from x squared plus 7x plus 10 to that's x plus 2 times x plus 5? Well, we look at this and we see that two numbers multiply to be 10, and the same two numbers add to be 7. Right? Well, how do we remember this? We do this thing called Xbox. If I draw an X here, the top I put multiply. The numbers are going to be multiplied to be the last digit of the trinomial, which is 10, and add to be the middle term. So then this helps me to factor. I look at the factors of 10 to see which ones will add up to be 7. And I know that's 2 and 5. So then I get that it's x plus 2 and x plus 5. Now let's take a look at it though when you're not given the solution to start with, right? If I have x squared plus 6x plus 8, I go ahead and I know that if I am dividing, that I know I can square root x squared, and so both get an x. I also see that 8 is positive, and the middle term is positive. So in order to have a positive number, when I'm multiplying, it either has to be a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. And because it's positive on the middle term, I know that both of these terms are going to be positive. So I'm looking for factors of 8, that two of them that add up to be 6. And so when I look at factors of 8, I would see 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. And obviously 2 plus 4 is 6. So that is going to be my factors. I'll have x plus 2 and x plus 4. And I can check that because I can multiply this out. And I see, yep, I get back to that trinomial. So let's look at it again. Go ahead and start with your Xbox, right? After you split your x's. And on here we know that two numbers that multiply to be a positive 6 but add to be 5, right? Again, we know these are both positive because a positive times a positive equals positive 6. And the middle term, the same digits have to add to be a positive 5. So I know it's going to be 2 and 3, right? Yep. And it doesn't matter the order I put it in. I can place x plus 2 times x plus 3, or I could do x plus 3 times x plus 2. So let's see if we're getting the hang of this. Go ahead and try this one and then check your answer. Pause the video, obviously. Okay, so I look at this. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to be 50 but add to be 15. And obviously that's 10 and 5. Okay, this was the you try we did in class. Pause the video here and then check your answers. And we get 2 and 6. All right, so now what if it's not positive, right? I have x squared plus 2x equals negative 8. Well, on this, now I'm looking for two terms that multiply to be a negative number. And the only way to have a negative number when I'm multiplying is to have a positive and a negative. So I know I'm going to have a positive and a negative, right? And so I want two numbers that multiply to be negative 8 but add to be 2. So 1 and 8 are never going, I look at the difference here, and they're never going to be 2, but 2 and 4 can be. As long as I have the largest number 4 be positive and to have it be a negative 2, then I'll end up with a positive 2 for my middle term. Let's practice it again. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply, one's positive and one's negative, that multiply to be a negative 18, but add to be 7. I know I split the y's, and I can look at the factors of 18. I have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. So now I'm looking for the difference between the two, and I see that's going to be 9 and 2, so I know it has to be a positive 9 and a negative 2 to end up with a positive 7. All right, try this one. Pause the video. Let's see how you did. Did you get m plus 15 and m minus 3 because they multiply to be negative 45 but add to be a positive 12? And we have this you try, a couple of these you tries, and if you're practicing, go ahead and pause the video and then check your solutions. And of course, we could write them both ways. All right, now let's look at this case scenario. We're doing the same thing, but we see that now we're multiplying to be a positive 16, but we're adding to be a negative 10. So again, the only way to have a positive number that you're multiplying by, that you multiply to get, is either a negative times a negative or a positive times a positive. So this must mean that we're doing a negative times a negative because we add to have a negative 10. So I look at my factors of 16, and again I look at addition this time because they're going to add up to be 10. So it's going to be negative 2 and negative 8 to multiply to be a positive 16 and add to be a negative 10. Go ahead and try this one. Let's see how you did. So I look at 30, and what multiplies to be 11? That's obviously 5 and 6. So a negative 5 and a negative 6. And again, I can check it to make sure I'm doing it right, and I am. Here's a you try. You can pause the video and check yourself. So our last case scenario, what if I have a negative 24, that something multiplies to be a negative 24 and then adds to be a negative 5? Well, not unlike the first one that we said that multiplies to be negative, we know that one of the factors has to be positive and the other negative, because that would be multiplied to be a negative digit. But now we need the larger number to be negative to have the negative 5 when you add it together. And we look at the difference anytime we're dealing with negative on the multiplication. And we see that 3 and 8 have a difference of 5. Now this time I have to make sure that 8 is negative and the 3 is positive. So when I add them together, I end up with a negative 5. Go ahead and pause the video here and check your answers. And hopefully you got negative 16 and a positive 2. All right. I'm actually going to skip this you try because what I really like is this one. Pause the video here and then check your answers. So what you're going to see is that every single one of these has the same factor of 4 and 5. But it just depends on if they're positive or negative, right? On number 1, we want it to multiply to be a negative 20. So then we know they're going to be opposites. But then I want a positive one in the middle, so 5 is positive and 4 is negative. On number 2, we have a negative 9 in the middle, so both terms are negative because they also have to multiply to be a positive 20. On number 3, we have now got a positive 9 in the middle and a positive 20. So we know everything has to be positive. And lastly, on number 4, we have the middle term is negative 1. So we know that they have to have opposite digits to multiply to get the negative 20, but when they add up, they have to be add up to be negative 1. I hope this is helpful, and next time we will do AC method.